Hello, Alex Lafkus here. Tomorrow I am going to go just do a little wade fishing. It'll probably suck again because that's where we're at. But I'm going to go throw a floating line with wet skunks. I don't have them with me right now, but I've been talking a lot about them. I know it might be getting annoying, but it does work. But though I wanted to say, standard stuff, 7.5 foot, 1X leader. I'm going to fish the big one. I'm taking the little ones too. Going to play with them, black and white. One thing I would recommend before you guys do any sort of trip, any sort of fishing, like clean your fly lines. It's going to make everything so much easier. This is a line dressing I like. It's the Rust Peaks. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but it's the Umpqua Rust Peaks. So there's a couple ways to do it. You can do do the soap and water where you take a paper towel, you put it in. The best way I've found is you dump it in warm water with some Dawn dish soap and you let it kind of sit there. And then I'll strip it out and dry it off and put it into a bucket. And then I'll kind of do that, a couple of times. And then I'll have the clean 5-gallon bucket there. I'll throw it back into the water. I'll do it one more time, just flipping that paper towel around to get the dirt off it initially. And then just take a different paper towel, run the Rust Peak stuff. Man, it's going to feel like a brand new fly line. And when you're trying to fish these small rivers and really hit small spots and stuff, it's key that your line's not tacky so everything will follow it. And you'll be able to make better casts and better presentations. A lot of the questions I've been getting lately too are about which fly lines I like or this, that, the other thing. Man, I use a standard Rio Gold for 98%. More than that, I use it for all of my floating fly line applications. So it's a really straightforward taper. I think it's a 42-foot head. There's no aggressiveness to it. It's a very fine dry fly leader or fly line. It'll throw it. You got to just be patient on your cast. There's a couple things to watch for. Watch for your wrist turning during the cast. Your cast should be more straight through with your thumb behind the rod at all times. On your backhand, you're dipping it this way. Forehand, a lot of people have issues because they're turning the wrist in the cast. And what a lot of people do is they either push it too hard, which causes the line to shock, and it'll shoot it back and then it won't be straight, or they're rushing their back cast and things aren't laying out straight for them. So a lot of times it's more about casting than it is the fly line you're using. Even in Arkansas, when I used to night fish, I'd run that Rio Gold with big mouse patterns, and you can get it. You got to get 45 feet out to carry it in the air while you're false casting, which means, you're usually doing a haul to some degree, a double haul, whatever it takes. Double haul will make it cleaner, but that's going to be the biggest issue probably most people are facing. So I don't know. We'll see what we catch. I might even take some streamers and fish a streamer on the way down. I'm planning on taking a 15-foot type 6 sink tip tomorrow. So well, see what happens. So we are out here today on the Boardman River. I am pitching around the dreaded Wet Skunk. Started with the bigger one. We'll see what happens. I've already moved 3 little ones, 1 decent one, but I want to kind of walk through, fishing some of this stuff and how I pick it apart. I'm upstream wading, floating line, 9.5 or 7.5 foot 1X leader. Really picking the small spots. I'm getting a lot of questions about people asking, oh, what line works here, what line works there. I use a Rio Gold for 98% of my fishing when I'm using a floating line. So much of it's just about slowing down and making a good cast. That's going to be something I'm going to have to do a video on out on the lawn or something at some point, because I can't show it to you doing this. But you'll notice I'm picking at these little spots. You're probably sick and tired of hearing about the Wet Skunk, but man, it's devastating this time of year. It works better than streamers until that water temp drops. So I don't know. Hope you enjoy it. Hopefully we'll catch a few fish today. Like I said, seen 3 already, so whatever, but watch the kind of the angles. Audio is going to be kind of a mess because I'm wading upstream, but one of my real nice clients recently told me I looked like a fat chunk of Laffy Taffy, so in one of my blue shirts, so I probably ought to get out and do a little more wading. So, I don't know. Enjoy. Now, I started today with the bigger skunk. There was a bite. Just to see if I could drum up a little better fish. Shoot, that looked like the perfect spot too. And there he was. Just fishing that tail out. You can see the corner upstream. I see that corner, and I'm just trying to fish that tail out, and that fish popped at it. So right here, I'm coming up, and I'm just going to fish this inside shelf real quick. You know, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but there's a defined shelf right here on the inside, hard corner. So I'm going to start on that inside as I go up. And usually there's, well, nice fish will use it. But there's, you know, a lot of times there's something there. And obviously as that sun gets higher, a lot of those better fish are going to transition to the deep side. But you know, it's early, and in the evenings I'd be looking for your best fish to be, well, probably in that big back eddy over there, because it is a little river. And that's one thing that, you know, these little rivers, man, them fish have a real tendency to stay in the wood, in the deep water. They don't move around as much. It seems like the bigger the river you get, the more they kind of have a feeding spot and a hiding spot. A lot of times on smaller rivers, those are closer. You know, a lot of times they'll sit right, you know, on a hatch situation. They won't leave out of the wood necessarily to feed. Whereas in a big river, they'll drop into a flat to rise, which, you know, you can see on any of our bigger rivers in Michigan. But a lot of the little rivers, man, them fish get in tough little spots next to the wood and such. You know, say the Upper Asable, some of the way upper Manistee, the Pere Marquette, you know, as much as they rise on some of those rivers, you know, like sometimes those fish will be in just god awful, horrendous spots. Especially in areas like the Holy Water where they just get whipped on. Now, night fishing's a different deal because they're going out and hunting. So a lot of times they'll slide to those insides and such to kill things. Well, I moved a few on the big skunk and nothing on this yet. So I'll grind it out and see. That was just a really nice deep brown trout hole. Which, small fish could be scared. There should be a big one in there. The presentation with this, you know, I'm just kind of stripping to keep up the slack and then wiggling the rod tip to get the action. It's a lot of dead drifting with it. It is so effective in the summer too. It outfishes streamers, you know, any stripped presentation about 90% of the time in the summer. That changes later in the year, but But if you notice, like a lot of the casting I'm doing is I'm, you know, really casting a lot of different angles. It's not just straight over my right shoulder all the time. You know, you got to get creative. You got to have a good backhand to hit different areas. Slowing down the cast, making sure you're hitting the spots you really need to hit. And once again, I'm staying super shallow. You know, I'm basically moist dirt here while I'm casting out. You know, just trying to make as little noise as possible. I can fish this middle of the river, sneaking up on it, hoping maybe there's some brook trout or something out there. I don't know. Whatever. Just fish it if you're going through it. You'll be surprised at times. I'm going to end up getting a cast up in between those trees when I get the angle. Looks like I'm going to have to be between my back cast and everything. A little tricky, but we'll get one in there. And those are a lot of the spots they use in these little rivers. Those itty bitty creases in between the cedars. You know, and that's one thing, like a lot of our rivers, you know, when you find a cedar, you find a little pit. You know, those fish need that overhead cover. A lot of this stuff, you know, death comes from above. So yeah, really pinch that loop down to get it in there. But you know, those are the spots. If you can get 3-4 foot back up in there where other people aren't hitting, sometimes that'll yield a better fish. But you got to make a really slow cast and then push it up in there. You know, so that's getting 4 feet up in there, and I'm not getting rewarded, but well, I covered it. Oh, something to be said for that. That's why we do this. It's fun. There was a nice one. Wouldn't come up again, but saw him flash underneath it. That was another one of them teeners. Oh, or 12 or whatever, but respectable for this river for a beaming Sunday. God, it just won't grab. It might be a little cranky today. Shoot, if you're gonna fish in Michigan, better learn how to fish docks. Another perfect nymphing hole. Little peanut, but life. Just kind of milking this little soft bubble line. And I've been picking at it. I've seen a couple, you know, dart out of those little spots. And it seems like, it definitely seems like kind of high sticking it. Keep as little line in the water as you can is helping me keep it into that seam longer. Which, I'm jaded. I fish out of a boat all the time. So I don't worry about it as much, I guess. then we'll go into that back eddy. Come on, come on, come on. I know they're sitting in there. It's just, well, can you get one to jump? Which hasn't been very easy. I think I've moved 4 or 5 so far, which isn't good, but whatever. Not that I thought this morning would be on fire. Next week will probably be better as we go into the full moon. A lot of times that'll change some behavior. You know, the nice thing about the full moon is they're not super aggressive at night typically, unless it's cloudy or broken to some degree. That's what I typically see, but you do see some good daytime windows around the full moon. But I've got some musky guide trips, so I'll most likely be doing that. Great log in the water. Oh, nothing would come off it. Now we'll fish a little better this time, a little shorter. Keep it off there a little bit more. Oop, there I flashed a decent fish. I just saw the color come up on the edge of that tree. So we're gonna try to fish that a little bit. Oh, yeah, that was 10-12 incher. Just saw the gold underneath, you know, that's, you gotta pay attention, man. Yeah, that's how you learn a lot of this stuff, is you just see them once, and then you can mix up and you'll find them. Now, that was a little better fish. He was right where he should have been too, you know, right on the mid-river side of that dead tree. You might have to see a sparkle minnow on the way back down. The one major advantage of wade fishing though is, you know, you get to a good spot like this and you can really milk it, you know, and take your time and fish it. You know, a lot of the floating stuff is cast or two and you're out of there. But you cover so much more water that, I don't know. You know, it's just the deal. Trade-offs. I always figured, you know, floating was better searching, but if you're doing like a hatch situation, you know, wading is just fine. You know, if you sit in one spot long enough, you will find more fish in that one spot than a random guy floating through. Once the hex thing started getting super busy, I realized that and was like, you know, people are better off wade fishing. And you can get away from some of the traffic and catch just as many, if not more, fish. Look, I'm gonna pick at all this little stuff, you know, little spots like that. A lot of times you'll see these fish eat this fly off the surface too, so it's like I'm really just focusing on that tiny little area, hoping to see a little boil. Kind of watch the tip of your line, if you can, but a lot of times you'll see that boil. So what I have seen is a bunch of fish come up and look and not commit, which tells me a couple things, or one of two. One, they might just not be biting. I'm not going to believe that yet. Or two, it's just cold and they're sitting in a little deeper water and I need to get down and feed them a little bit. So I'm going to pull out, I got a little 15-foot type 6 sink tip, I think. Oh no, this looks like a 200 grain 24-foot. Yes, it is. So I grabbed the wrong reel. Oh well, that happens. I'm an idiot. It's gonna be a little overloaded for this rod, but whatever. I'm gonna just fish it. I have 3 different lines for 6 weights that have a yellow runner, and I grabbed the wrong one. That's all right. We'll fish this and see if we can't move some fish that get them to commit. I've probably moved 6 or 7 in just like, I don't know, an hour or so of fishing, but I just see them lift and not commit. A couple of them were, you know, not big, but bigger than 6 inches. I don't know, in this bright sun I'll probably just start with the sparkle minnow and see what happens. I brought some real little sparkle minnows just to play with because I don't know, I felt like it. So we'll do that and fish my way down and hopefully pick up a fish or two, but I was definitely seeing fish that would kind of rise up, look, and not eat. And that to me, whenever I see that, I believe I'm just not having a fly deep enough that they, you know, that they'll commit to it. So I'm gonna tie this stupid little thing on, whatever. Cone, flash, done. And we'll see. And I've seen that stuff a lot. Like I've seen it everywhere I fish, where it's like they'll roll underneath your fly a foot. And it's like, so you're kind of moving them, but you're just not getting them to go. Typically I find if you sink a fly to them or get it down deeper, that's when you can get them to trigger. So I'm gonna wade my way down now because I'm in a section with a really big gravel flat, and I just went through some good deep holes, and I'm gonna go fish back through them and see what happens. So hopefully it will suck less. So I'm rigged up with my wrong line, which is a 200 grain sink tip. I'm gonna fish down, and I'm just gonna wade down to the bridge. I gave it a couple hours this morning. That's about all I wanted to do. I got things to do, but let's see if I can't pick up a couple fish fishing this sparkle minnow a little deeper through some of this stuff. What I like to do too is, you know, I'll typically wade kind of like I'm fishing in a boat, you know, where I keep moving. And you know, like I had some comments off that last video about, you know, being way out in front. I typically don't like that. I like to move with it and give it a little bit more time to marinate out there, extend the drift, get less of a swing. The river is a little bit wider. Like some of the stuff on the upper Asable, oh, what'd I get there? Bottom. Is wide enough you can, and slow enough that it's like you can wade fish just like I would a fish out of a boat. Where you're just moving at a constant pace and just kind of flipping all the spots. You know, some of the deep holes you might take a little more time in, but I always move pretty quick wade fishing. You know, and that's why I like the South Branch down there. There's some spots on the Manistee too where you can wade great distances and have a short walk back, which is nice. Cover water. Sometimes you have to cover water to find a handful of active fish. Now I got a couple addresses of some 10-12 inchers, nothing super special, that I moved today, and I'm going to make sure to hit those spots a little bit more thoroughly with that fly a little deeper, because they both lifted and rolled under it, which tells me the skunk is not getting deep enough. There's a little one. Told you they were fishing the Boardman. Black Ghost, micro trout. Boom. And gone. I told you there were trout in the Boardman. I know some people didn't believe. No, I've moved some fish today. It's the first one that's bit. There's another, I'm not sure when this video is going to come out. I think it's after the one we floated it a few weeks ago, and you'll get a little better idea how many fish are in this river in that video. Well, that sucked. Not terrible. I mean, whatever. You go for an hour and a half, you move 8-10 fish. Could be a lot worse, so. But anyway, hopefully you learn how to kind of pitch that wet skunk around. There's a couple other videos out on fishing that. One day we actually got some really nice fish on it too, down on the Pier Marquette. But yeah, thanks for checking it out. If you got any other ideas on videos, just let me know. We'll get to it. Thanks.